The New York Giants are a big question mark this year. Now, I really don't think they have too many issues, but the problem is all of their issues are involving their three most important aspects of any football team, realistically. And that's their quarterback. We really need to see what Daniel Jones is this year. That's the health of both Saquon Barkley and Kenny Golladay. And that's the offensive line. So they don't have a ton of question marks, but the problem is their question marks are probably their most three important aspects on this team. First of all, Daniel Jones, at this point, there are no more excuses. And if you're going to give him an excuse, it would be the offensive line. But long story short, the Giants don't think it's that much of an issue. The New York Giants did not address the offensive line until a couple of weeks ago, where they started trading for backup linemen and guys who are just going to fit their rotational scheme. That's what they want to do. So if the New York Giants front office and that brass think that this offensive line is good enough, that means that they think that Daniel Jones should be able to succeed without an elite offensive line. At least from the outside looking in, it's not elite. They think differently, good for them. I think they're wrong, but I guess it's a wait and see kind of thing. But this offseason, they've given Daniel Jones plenty to work with. Now, of course, week one, we're not sure if Kenny Golladay is going to be active. We're not sure if Kadarius Toney is going to be active. They went out and got the highest touted receiver on the free agent market in quite some time. They gave him a bag for $72 million. And even though that he's hurt right now, that was a move that still had to be made. I understand that Kenny Golladay hasn't really played a full season much in his career. I think he's only played 16 games once. But that was a move that had to be made because Daniel Jones has been throwing to Darius Slayton and Sterling Shepard and Evan Ingram, who can't catch, for his entire career. He lost his best weapon in Saquon Barkley in week 2 last year. And we can all say that that is why Daniel Jones struggled immensely last year. We could say that no training camp and no legit practice and the pandemic really hurt him in his sophomore season. But you know what? Now there are no more excuses. It's a third year. This is the make or break year. Daniel Jones has to be good. He needs to show that he is the quarterback for this Giants team in the future, both short-term and long-term. Because if he's not, if Daniel Jones doesn't perform well, they have to move on. And that's why they got the Bears' first-round pick for next year. Because if Daniel Jones is not good this year, they have draft capital to move up. Or even if the Giants and or Bears aren't that good, they can be in prime position for a quarterback. Now, I'm not going to sit here and act like I know much about next year's quarterback draft class, but we see quarterbacks go early every single draft. So why wouldn't it be any different for the 2022 draft? Now, it is looking like Kenny Golladay and Kadarius Toney will be active pretty soon. I'm not sure if they're going to be playing this week against Denver, but Saquon Barkley looks like he's going to be cleared for this week against Denver. We should see relatively soon if Daniel Jones has enough firepower on the outsides to build success. And you know what? Daniel Jones is more than athletic enough to avoid pressure. He's not Eli Manning, where he's a sitting duck in the pocket and can't get out of pressure. And if the second defensive lineman is in his face, it's a sack. We've seen Daniel Jones run, and aside from that injury last year, which really prohibited his ability to get out of the pocket and run for some yards. But Daniel Jones, I think statistically, is like the third fastest quarterback in the league behind Mahomes and Lamar Jackson. He's underratedly fast, and he does have the ability to move away from the pocket. So you know what? I don't think this offensive line is much of an excuse for him anymore, especially when he has receivers at this point, and he's going to have Saquon Barkley, where he's going to have the ability to extend the play, move out of the pocket, look for receivers in Barkley, in hopefully Toney, hopefully in Kenny Golladay. But if those guys are hurt for an extended period of time, I'm really afraid that they are rushing Saquon Barkley back. Now, I can have an entirely different conversation about why the Saquon Barkley pick was bad, but I'm not going to get into that. That's just beating a dead horse at this point. But if Saquon Barkley is on the field, he is a difference maker. Saquon Barkley is easily a candidate for 60 to 70 catches at least this year. And they're going to use Saquon Barkley a lot. Now, his week 1 touches might be up in the air, but I think by the time we reach week 3, week 4, we're going to see Saquon Barkley touch the ball a lot. And the Giants have missed that offensive playmaker. And the Giants have missed that offensive explosion so much. They had it with Odell Beckham Jr. They had it with Saquon Barkley. Last year, they did not have an elite offensive player. Now they have 2. So they're going to be making plays. So you expect this offense to improve from the 31st ranked offense in all of the league. There was one team behind them, and that was the New York Jets, in a historically bad season for Sam Darnold and that team as a whole. The Giants went out there and they got Kenny Golladay. They drafted a receiver in the first round because they know, or at least they think, that Daniel Jones can put up points, and they want to have a play action in their back pocket. They didn't really have a play action in their back pocket with Wayne Gallman running and Sterling Shepard leading the team in catches, which might be the case even this year also, considering on how long Kenny Golladay is out for. But one thing about Sterling Shepard is that he's not this 1,000-yard receiver. Maybe with the 17th game he could be, but we've seen Kenny Golladay get 1,000 yards. We've seen Kenny Golladay get double-digit touchdowns. If there's one sure thing about this Giants team, it's this defense. And this defense got better. For a defense that was on the field the entire game, I felt like last year, they held their own, that's for sure. What, they allowed 7 points against Russell Wilson and the Seahawks? They were very good last year. From week 1 to week 17. All season long, the defense was awesome. And they got Adoree Jackson now. They're hoping that Julian Love can improve in his second year. This defense is, honestly, I'll say it, this is a championship caliber defense. But if they don't score points, they're in trouble. This league is not defense wins championships anymore. In a league where it seems like everyone is scoring 30 points a game, the Giants couldn't score 20. So with these acquisitions, with Kadarius Toney, who they think is a firecracker. Kenny Golladay, we know what he can do. Kenny Golladay 50-50 balls is probably the best in the game. And Daniel Jones's deep ball ability is pretty damn good. Getting Saquon Barkley back. And we're going to see what the Giants have in the first 2 weeks of the season, quite frankly. Because they're going up against Von Miller and Bradley Chubb in week 1. And they're going up against Montez Sweat and Chase Young in week 2. Who, by the way, Daniel Jones is 4-0 against Washington in his career. Which is pretty amazing considering that Washington won the division last year. So I guess that you have high hopes for that. I think they play on Thursday night against Washington. I guess you have high hopes in that one. And you know that this defense is going to have the advantage against Teddy Bridgewater and Ryan Fitzpatrick. You know that this defense is going to keep them in these first couple weeks. But when was the last time the Giants won one of their first couple of games? 2016, when they went 11-5 and then crapped the bed in Lambeau Field in the playoffs? I think 7 of their last 8 seasons, they have started 0-2. Now, granted, in 2007, they started 0-2 when they beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl. But that team, quite frankly, isn't this team. That team had a very good offensive line. This team does not. So we are going to get our answers about the Giants, I think, relatively quickly. But I also don't think that the Giants are in wait and see and let's compete in these games. They're not in that mode anymore. The Giants are in win-now mode. They need to show up on Sundays and start to win football games. Not lose by 3, lose by 4, lose by 7, and have hopes for next year. In this crappy division, there are no more hopes. There's no time for that. Daniel Jones is under a lot of pressure this year, rightfully so. Quite honestly, so is Saquon Barkley, because he needs to show that he needs to stay healthy. And personally for himself, he's going to start to be playing for a contract. This is an important season for the New York Giants. And I really don't know how to evaluate them, because it wouldn't surprise me if they won anything from 5 to 11 games, to be quite honest with you. Like I said, this defense is going to keep them in ball games. If Daniel Jones plays like he did his rookie year, then I really think that this team can win 10, 11 games. If Daniel Jones plays like he played last year, where he had 11 touchdowns and 10 interceptions, keep in mind his rookie year, he threw 24 touchdowns. So that number subtracted by 13 while he played in 1 more game and started in 2 more games last year. Started 12 games in his rookie year, started 14 last year, and he threw 11 touchdowns. That will not cut it, no matter how good your defense is. Because defenses are going to slip. Opposing offenses are going to find holes. It's going to happen when you're on defense. There's going to be a miscue where they do allow a big play. But if the offense is not going to show up, if the offense is not going to score points, they are in serious trouble. Legitimately, it would not surprise me if the Giants won this division. It would not surprise me if they came in dead last. I mean, the Giants don't have much of an easy schedule in their first 6-7 weeks. After Washington, they have Atlanta. That's a home game, and who knows what Atlanta's going to be. They blow leads left and right. But then you're going to New Orleans. You're going to Dallas, who everyone thinks is going to win the NFC East this year. At least they're the favorite. You're home against the Rams, who are honestly, they might win the Super Bowl. You're home against Carolina, which should be a win. But then you're at Kansas City. So these first 8 games, if they lose these first 2 games of the season, then week 3 becomes a must-win, in my opinion. Because then you have 2 road games, and then you're home against the Rams, and then you have to go to Kansas City a couple weeks after that. There is a legitimate chance that this team might start 1-7. So that's why they really need to step in the right direction from the start. Again, they are not in a mode where they can sit back and wait and see if they can improve as the year goes on. That was a cute little narrative last year. They got better as the year went on. We all saw that. But I don't want to hear that anymore from the Giants. And I don't want to hear from Joe Judge either. I don't want to hear, well, we got better from week 1 into week 17. And this offensive line better be good, because Dave Gettleman, since he has gotten to New York, hog mollies. Well, what has he done? He picked Saquon Barkley over Quentin Nelson. He traded back in the first round when Rashawn Slater was right there. Now, granted, again, they got Chicago's first-round pick for next year, but Rashawn Slater was sitting right there. So was Elijah Vera Tucker. 2020 draft, they got what looks like to be the worst of those 4 linemen in Andrew Thomas when they passed on Mekhi Becton, who's great. Tristan Wirfs, who's great. And Jedrick Wills, who has struggled, but his PFF grade was better than Andrew Thomas. And they drafted B.J. Hill, who they just traded for another rotational offensive lineman over Orlando Brown a couple of years ago, who was a Pro Bowler and just got traded for a first-round pick. So Dave Gettleman can preach hog mollies all he wants. He has not shown that he can do the job. shot, which I guess is kind of a win-win for the Giants, because if they don't make the playoffs, you know that Dave Gettleman is gone. But if they don't make the playoffs, what does that say about Joe Judge? And I like Joe Judge a lot, but we heard all of last year that they got better from the start of the season to the end. But in a really bad division where no one has repeated in forever, are Giant fans really going to be able to hear that again? I'm not. They have to be good this year. If they are 7-10, that's a failure. If they are under 500 at all, that is a failure in my opinion. Because you have Galladay, you have Saquon, you have Tony, you have a healthy Daniel Jones. Now Jason Garrett, say what you want about him, but this roster on paper is pretty good. It's time for Daniel Jones to step up, because if he doesn't, there's no shot that the Giants are making in the playoffs. There's no shot that they finish 500, and there's no shot that Daniel Jones is here next year either. And next season, the Giants will be looking for the next quarterback if Daniel Jones does not play well this year.